Welcome everyone to the Carrot meeting. Can I point out to people who haven't been here before that this meeting is webcast, so if you do speak the camera will switch to you and your image will be transmitted around the world for all the Russians to watch and everyone, so be aware of what you say. There are some items that are in private session on this, but all relate to items that are in public session. When I get to those items, if I presume the members have read those questions, can I point out to you, if you refer to any items in a private session, we'll have to chuck everyone out. Otherwise, we'll just go ahead with the meeting, so we'll take all the items in public. I have got notification to speak on item 8, 9 and 16. I intend, rather than to take them at the beginning, to take them when we come to those items. And so if anybody's got anything on other items, when it comes to the questions time, please ask the questions at the time. Can I remind Cabinet members that when the meeting is finished, we have a meeting of the Dewsbury Endowed Schools Foundation Trust meeting. That's trustees. Can I start the item now? Membership of the committee. We have apologies from Councillor Pandor, Ahmed, any of us on maternity leave, Biff Kendrick, who's crewing somewhere in France, and I'm not sure, oh, Kathy Scott's suffering Malta. And the rest of us are here. So can we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting? They agreed? Thank you. Any members got interest to declare? None. I've missed the public as I explained that we'll have to go into private session if members refer to items that's in the private part of the agenda. That is for items after 14 on the agenda. Item 5, deputations and petitions. Have we any deputation petition? None notified. Public question times. Have we any questions on items that, other than that I've mentioned on item 8, 9 and 16? No? Can I move on to item 7, members' question time? Have you any questions that are on the items? Okay, thank you. Can I move on to item 8? Is this yours, Graham?
Yes, Chair. Chair, this report deals with the issue of the Cemetery Road allotments. This very detailed report has been a little while in getting to Cabinet, as we have explored all avenues that would allow us to build a much-needed 420-place new school in an area that is desperate for school places, without impacting on the allotments and the surrounding area. But there was no viable alternative to the plan before you today. I fully understand the opposition to the proposals in this report. However, as an administration, we have a legal and moral duty to provide high-quality school places for the children of Kirklees. This is a very difficult part of Kirklees to build a new school in, due to the amount of existing buildings and housing, and the lack of space to construct a new facility has limited the choice. Schools have a duty to provide outdoor play area, as the ability to play and interact at dinner time and breaks is vital to children's development. This development is things like social skills and also allows them to use their energy to keep active. Well thought out and play provision can also spark their imaginations. Good school play provision is even more important in a very built-up area such as the one the new school will serve. I am a firm believer and fully support allotments and believe we should encourage people to use them as much as possible, and where there is demand, create new ones. They are a cheap way to provide alternate allotment holders with good quality fresh vegetables, and they can also provide regular exercise and can help with social isolation. All these things are important, and they're the sort of thing we believe contribute to the Council's early intervention and prevention agenda. However, there is no loss of allotment provision caused by the use of the current site. As part of the new school facility, we have invested heavily to create new allotments that have much better facilities than the existing ones, and we will do all we can to help those plot owners who wish to move to the new sites to do so in as easy and stress-free way as possible. Chair, I recommend that Cabinet accept this report before us today.
Nice. Hello, world. Okay. Right, my name is Debbie, and I'm campaigning to save the 34 allotments at Cemetery Road. You may remember a group of us before Christmas handing over a petition of over 5,000 signatures to save this much-loved land, a petition that was sadly denied a hearing. But anyway, moving on. Today we're talking about the appropriation of the land from allotments to educational use. Now, this appropriation, I believe, is premature for one big reason. There is a very simple solution that will mean everyone is happy, a positive outcome for all concerned. I know, it sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? So, I've got my visual aids. Make sure I've got it right. You'll see my hands are shaking now. All right, okay, like that. Yep, okay. All right, so here is the council plan for sports fields over the allotments. So you see this area at the top is the area that would have been the 34 allotments with the 2 sports fields on. Now, that's the school building, it's car parks, car parks. What I'm saying is, our lovely solution, so everybody's like bated breath now. Here, there's the allotments, just a little chunk taken off for the car park, and the 2 sports fields, oh, just there. There's plenty of room there. These, just wriggle up a bit, plenty of space. And, in fact, on the council's own visuals, that's pretty much the plan at the beginning. Okay? You can look at them afterwards if anybody wants to. Okay. Back to my speech. So, the sports fields are just moved to the other side of the school building. They're on spare, unused land that belongs to Greenhead College and Kirklees. Really simple solution, and one that the council proposed on its original plans, as we can see. So, Greenhead College are more than willing to discuss the use of this land. Barry Shearman has invited them to a meeting with the council so that we can move forward. Barry's been very prolific in his support. Unfortunately, Barry has had no response from the council to the plans or the invitation to meet. So, just to be clear, there is nothing in this proposal to delay the building of the school. We just think that this simple solution needs investigating, that's all. Indeed, allotment holders welcome the building of the school. Absolutely, it's very much needed in our local community. So, if you have an inkling that this solution could work, just even a little inkling that that might work and it's worth discussing, can we delay the appropriation until after discussions have been held? There are over 5,500 people following this, including celebrity gardeners, Toby Buckland and Matthew Appleby nationwide, hard-hitting political commentators like Jane Merritt, Time Woman of the Year. Please, let's show them democracy, engagement and common sense are alive and well in Huddersfield Town Hall.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jonathan Adamson. You're probably getting a bit familiar with me by now. I live in the gatehouse, Edgington Cemetery Gatehouse, close to the proposed development site. Following on from Debbie's fine address to you, I am sorry to say I do not see any of the simple proposals we've made to integrate the surrounding environment into the development as a whole, for the benefit of everyone, reflected in the officer's report to Cabinet, or any meaningful acknowledgement of the detailed legal evidence we have submitted to Kirklees Legal Services. To take one critical legal issue, whether Cemetery Road allotments are in fact temporary or statutory. The officer's report does not mention the term permanent allotments used throughout the council's minutes from the 1920s. As you will understand from the report, whether allotments were appropriated determines their designation as statutory or temporary today. In this respect, the minutes of the Agricultural Committee dated 9th of December 1935, under the heading The Town and Country Planning Act 1932, Huddersfield Town Planning Scheme Land for Allotments records land comprising about 8 acres sloping down from Highfields to St John's Church is approved for use as allotments, and the town planning maps were requested to be amended accordingly. In the report, the officers claim that these allotments will be recorded on other maps. Kirklees officers do not dispute that this land is Cemetery Road allotments. On the 11th of November 1943, the minutes of the Agricultural Special Subcommittee, under the heading Permanent Allotments, Town Planning Scheme, record that the General Superintendent submitted a list of allotments in the borough which was zoned under the Town Planning Scheme 1935, and also a draft list of additional allotments under the control of the Agricultural Committee. The evidence we have previously submitted to Kirklees shows Cemetery Road allotments were appropriated by the Agricultural Committee from the General Estate for allotment purposes in 1935. Subsequent minutes, such as the one dated 1943 above, also confirm Cemetery Road allotments were considered permanent allotments after 1935. The phrase statutory allotments does not appear in the council minutes until the 1950s. Therefore, Cemetery Road allotments should have been automatically designated as statutory allotments at some point after the Second World War. There are other reasons too why this designation should have been adopted during this period. Thus, by law, the Council is required to apply to the Secretary of State for permission to dispose of any area of Cemetery Road allotments for non-allotment purposes. Ultimately, only a judicial review can determine this matter, assuming the Council continues to argue Cemetery Road allotments are only temporary. In my opinion, by failing to acknowledge the appropriation of Cemetery Road allotments in 1935, the Council is, by subterfuge, seeking to extinguish fundamental community rights. I will be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, the people who haven't read the full report will not appreciate that in the report these items are dealt with in the report. And it's a bit different to a matter of opinion. Now, the advice we are being given is that it's not a statutory allotment. In fact, on 15th of September 1958, resolved not to conclude this as a statutory allotment. But really, the bottom line of it is not about the legal arguments or something else. It's about argument about what is the effect of this. We are wanting to build a new school with the provisions of the new school house, and I think everyone agrees to that. The people who are on the allotments have been offered allotment places in other. No one is going to be deprived of an allotment. So we're asking some, and I don't know how many is left, but we're asking some people to move for allotment. Some of these allotments are empty. And you said that in the report it actually says that the school didn't want to sell the other two fields that you're proposing that we should have. The governor's declined to sell us those fields. It's in the report.
That discussion hasn't been happening.
Is it in the report, which you've got in front of you? It quite clearly says that the governors of the school declined to sell us those. They sold us the one that the school is being built on, but they declined to. The report states that. The report quite clearly says that the governors were asked to. Sorry. The report quite clearly says that the school was asked to sell that land to allow the play area for the school, and they declined. They said they want to keep it their ownership, but agreed to sell one part of land where the school built. Well, sorry, that's what we've got in the report. Graham, do you want to answer?
Just to, when the gentleman's finished. This discussion around that land has been had with officers on numerous occasions, because this report, as I pointed out earlier, has been quite a while in the making, and I've asked the question numerous times, and other colleagues have. We were not allowed to buy that land. The school made it quite clear that they weren't going to sell that land. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, can I?
Sorry, can you please listen to the answer?
Sorry,
stop interrupting.
If you want to debate, we'll do that later. This is not a place for debate. This is a meeting held in public. This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. Let me finish. I am assured by officers on numerous occasions that the college were not prepared to sell that land. We have spent significant amounts of money creating a new allotment. There is no loss of facility here. It's in a slightly different position. I understand that sometimes people get wedded to a specific thing, but we've actually created, in many ways, a better facility, because we put an awful lot of money into infrastructure in the new sites. We worked with the plot holders. My understanding is 14 of them have already moved and are happy. We gave them those that came forward. No, well, okay, nobody's moved it.
The subsoil is compacted on those. If it was it's really emotional. I'm sorry, but it really is.
Right. As I said, we've created a new space. We've invested heavily in creating this space, and my understanding is that has been approved by the Parks and Department that's done that work. And I notice Julian's here this afternoon. I've no doubt we can have a conversation with Julian afterwards, who's our allotment officer, and I suspect that Julian will be in agreement with what we've achieved up there. So, in answer briefly, they wouldn't sell the property to us, the land, and we have invested to make sure that no loss of allotments occurs during this site. It's quite clear in the report, and like all legal documents, you can probably interpret it one or two ways. I can't find anything in there that says that these are statutory allotments, and that's the difference. They don't appear to be statutory.
Can we be clear that if there were statutory allotments, then we would make a request to the Secretary of State? The request we've been making was to build a school that is much needed, and we said we'd provide the same number of allotments with better facilities at a site nearby. That's the decision we would ask the Secretary of State to make. Now, a rational decision, I would think that a rational decision we have been asked to make, do we want a new school with adequate playing facilities? That's what we're saying. And for a great length of time, these negotiations have been going on. Options have been looked at by all the officers. Negotiations have been had with the school about selling the land. And this is the choice we've got in front of us. The choice the Cabinet's got to make is, do you want a new school on this site, and which we accept the consequence of that? That means some people will have to move allotments to a better site. That is the question. That is a question.
But utilises the environment in the best possible way.
If they just add a little insight into it. I remember having literally there in the 1970s, and it was well understood by all allotment holders then, we're talking mid-1970s, this was temporary, and ultimately it would be taken back in for further use, which might be a school or might be for housing, and it was then understood. That is in the 1970s. And the piece of land that we took over, I remember, was wilderness. We had to rescue it from the wilderness and bring it back to allotment. I think it now subsequently is back to wilderness.
We understand. Can I understand that we've got two objectors who don't wish these allotments to be moved, and we've got the report in front of us saying we wanted to build a school on this site. Could I ask the Cabinet to vote for the recommendations in the paper? All those in favour, please show. That is carried unanimously. Can I move on to item 9, please?
We haven't asked our questions yet. We registered to ask questions. You voted before we've asked our questions.
Ask a question then now.
Right, there are 4 questions to be asked, I suspect. Do you want me to go first?
It's fine. Yeah. It is my understanding the council is required...
Press.
Oh, sorry, love it.
Unpress yours and press yours off.
Oh, yeah, yours is on. Just, yeah. It is my understanding the council is required to provide a certain number of allotments per head of population. Does the council provide this number of allotments or more within the Huddersfield area? Okay, that's well. Okay, that's right.
It's going to be easy to answer them one at a time.
It might be easier, but if you could have put these questions in, it would have been easier if you put these questions in much earlier.
We weren't asked to put them in earlier.
Well, it
we
would have
talked to Richard Dunn.
Sorry, look, can I explain? This campaign has been going on for quite a long time. We've had people coming to the council.
We've had
you know
one
full
meeting.
well
We've
what
had one
what's been
meeting with
going
the
on.
council. It took them 3 months to have a meeting with Barry Shearman. 3 months.
We have
were
no
promised
need
to
to have a
follow
meeting
up.
with Barry
We
Shearman.
were promised to follow up.
Can I make it clear that Barry Shearman may be the MP for Huddersfield, but he has no bearings on whatsoever on what we're discussing at this point in time. It is the responsibility of the council to dispense by making sure there are adequate schools, and within that schools, making sure if there is any provision that we make like for like. And I think what we've done is we've made an investment in state-of-the-art allotments, which I'd be happy to take over any day.
We really need to come down and have a look.
I have had a look.
Well, we haven't
I am not.
We're having an answer to another question. Well, actually, a question that hasn't been asked. Yeah, she's asked a question.
I am not
There's
aware
an
that
answer
there's.
to the question.
I'm not aware there's any legislation that means we have to provide X number of allotments per head of population.
All right. We were promised by the council, people sat round a table with us and promised us a second meeting to discuss this option. And every time we approach people, nobody responds. Well, why have I had no response?
I'm not able to speak on behalf of officers.
She has.
Okay, it obviously keeps switching off. I don't know why. We keep pressing it and it disappears. Maybe there's some reason for this. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, well, okay, I expect you'll say it's a balls up or something. What percentage of the land purchased and appropriated for the construction of the school will be owned by the school?
As long as it can be complied by legislation.
That's not an answer. I'm asking for a percentage of the land.
It'll be the legislation around educational facilities. This is a new school, so this will automatically become an academy.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. This is a follow-up question. Will the council be able to sell any land it considers to be surplus to the needs of the school in the future?
The school, because it's a new build, will automatically become an academy and therefore is not in the control of the council. So
I'm
no, we won't
talking
be selling
about the
again.
land that the report claims is required for the school. That's what I'm talking about. He hasn't answered my question. To the school.
Yes.
It will. So the entire area of land, including the playing fields on the allotments, will belong to the school.
It forms part of the new academy, yes.
Will it belong to the school?
It forms part of the academy. It's a new school, so it automatically, by legislation, becomes an academy. Therefore, the curtilage of the school will be part of the academy.
Yeah, we know about the curtilage of the school. I'm talking about the total area of land.
Sorry, the total area of land acquired for the school is the curtilage of the school.
The playing fields, there seems to be a lot of ambiguity about...
No, sorry, there's no ambiguity for any school in Kirklees whatsoever. Playing fields with schools are owned by the schools.
Okay.
There's no ambiguity whatsoever, and there's no ambiguity on this case apart from in your mind.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So basically that area on the allotments will belong to the school. Yeah, that's what you told me. Okay. What provision has the council made for community use of the proposed playing fields to be sited on Cemetery Road allotments?
Those playing fields will form part of the academy, and it is entirely to the academy how they use their facilities.
Okay. Sport England, my understanding is that Sport England... This is a follow-up
Look, this is
question.
not for you to make speeches, just ask a
This is a
question.
follow-up question. I need to tell you the context in order to ask the question. The context is, my understanding is that Sport England, which you will find probably referred to in the report and has been part of the way that this whole issue has been discussed for some time, Sport England insisted on a replacement football pitch, which was being taken as the footprint for the new school, which would be available to the community with improved facilities. Where is that football pitch going to be provided?
You look at 2.17 in the report. Sport England have reached agreements with the council to provide a new facility and the college.
That was in the early negotiations on the understanding that a full playing field would be replaced for the one that was to be taken up by the school.
We've taken the decision on this. The decision was quite plain. You wanted to procrastinate, fine.
I don't want
But
to
let's do it.
procrastinate.
I'm sorry. There are other people here there are other people here wanting to discuss the next item of the agenda, and I think you've had quite a long time at this, and it's been going on for many months. So the decision we had to was quite clear. Do we want a new school, and are we happy that the people who are at allotments have been allowed allotments somewhere else with better facilities? And the answer to that is yes. And if we do want a new school, we've all answered that. So thank you. Move on to item. Can we move on to item 9? The library service. Jeremy, do you want to speak first, or do you want Mr. Graham first? Well, you've got your names down first. That's why I'm not picking you out for special, Jeremy. It's just that your name. You were the first one to give your name in. So please press the button and speak.
Well, I was expecting to follow on after Graham, but let me say my piece. The Kirklees Branch Library Network is delighted that the Chief Librarian is committed to keeping all the Kirklees libraries open and will consult with the staff and friends of groups to pursue this aim. Libraries provide many services for the communities in which they operate. Computers and books are the most visible parts of that mix, but libraries will continue to meet the aims of the Council for community engagement and improved life opportunities. The network is pleased that the recommendation in this paper is to keep the service in-house. Considerable savings have already been made in books and staffing costs. We agree that further sums should come from both the library service and from indirect savings. The indirect savings may come from some asset transfers and from the greater use of libraries as community hubs, helping to meet the Council's aspiration for early intervention and prevention. The network agrees with the report that all libraries are different and that each will require a local plan to match its capacity and needs to the resources available from the Kirklees Library Service. We're also happy that a community development librarian will soon be appointed to take charge of the training and support of the volunteers who give their time to help keep our libraries running. That officer will also need to help friends of groups to recruit more volunteers in the future. The network wishes professional staff to be present whenever a library is open, if possible. We recognise that section 2.4.5 of the report says that where volunteers are unwilling to take on some volunteer-only periods, the library is likely to close. This will result in some difficult discussions with friends of groups. It is hoped that negotiated solutions will be found to keep the libraries open. A service level agreement or local plan will need to be drawn up with each group, which specifies what the service will provide and what the volunteers will do their best to provide. Volunteers will need to be able to access high quality expertise from experienced Kirklees Library staff. Telephone advice and remote login to the service computers will probably be required. This support will need to be available whenever the branch libraries are staffed. The network believes that local libraries should not be moved. We recognise that there will be some disagreements about moving library locations between the service and some friends of groups. We agree that the Home Library Service should be put out to tender using a volunteer agency. Consultation with friends of groups will allow further savings to be made in book purchase through their knowledge of local book borrowing preferences. We support the principle that the charged costs of energy and services to libraries should reflect the true costs, as long as this doesn't increase the bureaucracy. We agree with the suggested delegation to senior officers to achieve the policy laid out in this paper with as much speed as possible. However, we recognise that a funding cut of £1.9 million will result in redundancies, and the consultation with staff will probably be the most important factor in determining the speed of change. The uncertainty since the budget was announced has not helped the service. However, there is a strong will from both officers and volunteers to achieve a successful outcome, and I hope that this will be the case. Thank you, Chair.
I'm trying to find the list now. Jennifer.
Right. I'm speaking as a former principal librarian for the public school and school libraries and the art galleries and museums. Libraries have always cooperated with other departments in their work, and they're carrying on to do this. And Linley Library, the volunteers' title is now Linley Library Volunteers Community Group. It's a community group and not a friends of. We're encouraging community service as much as we can. And we are the base for around 20 groups within Linley, because there isn't anywhere else for groups to meet or cooperate with. We work together with schools. This summer's reading scheme, because we've been working with schools, includes a very large percentage of Caribbean and Asian secondary generation parents, and it keeps the children reading from when they leave the school until they go back in September, which is acknowledged as a really bad period for children. They can go very much backwards with the reading. The Linley History Research Group is planning activities and an exhibition for the 80th birthday of Linley Library. And the libraries work with the businesses for late night openings and other events within Linley. The Lindley Community Group is part of the Lindley area support, and we are part of that. We've also created some beautiful gardens for all of the people in Lindley to share. And I just want to emphasise that libraries are into cooperating with other people, other groups, other libraries and schools.
Thank you, Jennifer. Councillor Smage. I don't want using your Sunday name for the television, but Liz.
All right, thank you. In February, we asked that libraries not be taken in isolation, that they should be recognised as an integral part of all early intervention and prevention services, a vital part of communities, as well as supporting and encouraging children to read. The wider community function and the access to other services is recognised in the report. The way forward should not be about closing any part of the service. It should be about how local libraries serve their local communities and how they can contribute to access to services for everyone, including what the consultation indicates is difficult to quantify, the softer library outcomes. There is a recognition that continually going through reviews is not helpful to the sustainability of the library service. In the discussions going forward, the value of libraries in their communities should not be underestimated. It is concerning, though, that the report mentions parish precepts, but does not look at the fact that not all of Kirklees has parish councils. One size does not fit all. In the discussions going forward, any ideas should be in relation to the future sustainability and growth of the service. The benefit of a library can clearly be seen in the list of implications to the council in the report. I think that's just a fraction of what they do. There needs to be flexibility in the design of the service so that libraries are not suddenly shut because of staff illness or volunteers not being available. The service needs to be reliable and forward-looking. If it becomes reliable, then that will affect the footfall and could give a downward spiral that none of us would want to see. Staff and volunteers need to be assured that there is a future for libraries in Kirklees. Continuing of the home library service is also a key forming part of the early intervention and prevention work, helping people feel less isolated. And I would ask that the service going forward needs to be safe and be able to help with supporting vulnerable people. I am, though, concerned that Cabinet are delegating future decisions to officers. Cabinet should be fully involved and take decisions, especially if there are any changes in service. Cabinet are accountable and should not delegate that accountability, especially if that means that there then becomes a reduction in the way that members of the public, volunteers and friends can input into those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. A number of comments on the report, but I'll start with one of the summaries where it talks about we need to deliver on the service's ambition. And I think that's probably one of the important parts, that we need to be clearer about what the vision and what the ambition is for the library service going forward. Because I think, as other people have already commented, we have seen over the last few years that it's been a series of cuts and changes and uncertainty for both staff and volunteers as well. And I think that's referenced quite well in the report. I want to pick up on a couple of small specifics, if I may. Under 2.4.4, it talks about the parish precept, as Councillor Smage just mentioned. I would just have expressed this concern before, but this kind of idea that if you have a parished area, you should be able to increase your precept to provide your library service is double taxation, because in those areas that don't have a parish precept, they don't have the they get the library service provided out of the ordinary council tax. So I would very strongly oppose any attempt to suggest that what we should be doing is using a parish precept to subsidise the libraries, because it's unfair on the residents in those areas. My second small comment is under 2.6 around the library fines, and I don't really have a particular problem with not charging library fines, but just the loss of income it suggests would be partially offset by the costs associated with cash handling. But my experience of cash handling in libraries is it's only once a month, and there are other sources of income, so I'm not sure where the savings are going to come from, because they're still going to have to collect money, albeit that it will be a reduced amount of money that would be collected. So I'm not sure there is actually a saving to be offset. So I just think that needs picking up as a small pointer. I welcome the overall report, but I'm disappointed once again there's a further delay in any decisions or outcomes coming. We've heard several times about the impact this is having on the morale of both staff and volunteers, and this continual pushing the can down the road is not helpful for getting some stability and therefore a sound base on which we can build forward from. I would question the benefit really of the consultation itself. There are aspects of it that I didn't understand at the time, and it's quite clear from the report that the public didn't understand, particularly about the different models that could possibly have been sought for delivery. My experience from talking to people who were attempting to fill in the questionnaire was they didn't understand what the options were, so I'm not sure if any value we really got out of those comments. But I'm glad to see that the decision we're making is to keep the service in-house. My question would be, what timescales are we working to? Because that's not clear from this report. Because we need to be able to give some certainty to people. And this is saying, here's an update and we'll do more work. But it doesn't give us any indication. And I note under 3.8.3, there's a talk about an impact on the savings that could be delivered in 2019-20. And I mean, that I welcome the fact that there's a recognition that perhaps we need to retain more monies to continue to provide a valuable service across the district. But again, do we know what sort of level of extra funding would be required or what shortfall would be? And do we know what timescales we're working to give some certainty and outcomes to the libraries? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John. Just quickly, Jeremy, your comment about people that locally knowing the borrowing preferences just reminded me of my grandfather. He was an avid reader, but he read the same book over and over again. He read the same book over and over again, which was A Count of Monte Cristo. But being a Yorkshireman, he couldn't foil to buy it. So he used to borrow it from the local library. And when he took it back, if no one else had booked it, he booked it out again. But if someone else had booked it, he was waiting and going every day to find out if it'd come back again. But he just read it over and over again. But that's Yorkshire folk for you. Can I just, Liz mentioned, just in the context, Liz mentioned about the future for libraries in Kirklees. And I think we've got to put some context to this when we've looked at what's happening in Northampton. And I think, and this week as well, another council down the south coast has had a special meeting to close all non-statutory services. And there are rumours that others, Torbay, and there are rumours that others. So I don't think any council can make any promises about the future of a service. And the context we've got is where we are. And it comes back to what John said about the timescale. Yes, I accept, John, it's been a long time, and and that uncertainty over staff is not a good thing. But I don't think you would have welcomed it, as we wouldn't, if we'd have gone out first and shut off the libraries, as some of our neighbouring authorities have done. So many of the authorities in the area around the country have gone out on wholesale library closures, which we've tried to avoid. And I think the outcome from this recommendation, as Graham will say, is that we've always recognised that. So I don't think we needed to rush into it. I accept there are consequences, John, about the delay and how bad it is for staff and people knowing what's going on. But I still don't think we would have wanted to say, let's do it quick and let's shut some libraries. Yeah, I accept, said John, I accept that about the uncertainty, but that's a consequence of us trying to find a way to maintain as much of the service as possible. Graham, do you want to answer that?
Certainly, thank you, Chair. Thank you for everybody for contributing to this discussion. I think most of the points will be picked up in what I've pre-written here. Just one thing I would like to say is nowhere in this report, and this is to reassure staff, nowhere at all in this report does it propose any redundancies. It doesn't say anything about redundancies. So I can assure staff there is nothing in this report about redundancies. Whether we may change job descriptions or whatever, but there is no mention of redundancies in this report. So, Chair, thank you. This is, as we pointed out, the long-awaited and much delayed report into recent library consultation and sets out in broad terms the proposals for the future of the library service. This report has been written following the statutory consultation that was carried out with the public earlier this year, along with conversations and input from elected members, library staff, volunteers and friends groups. The consultation recognised the value that volunteers bring to our libraries, and that with staff and volunteers working together to look at solutions on a place-by-place basis, we believe we can continue to provide a vibrant and innovative library service. It is also very clear that a one-size-does-not-fit-all, and this approach won't work. And this needs to be reflected in any changes to the service. Each community has different needs and has different expectations from their library, and we must not lose sight of this in making changes. It is also very clear that the vast majority who engaged in the consultation were in favour of the library services being retained as a council-run service. This was an option that we will not be looking at. One very important thing that is worth noting is that when we did the consultation with young people, they made it very clear that they valued libraries as a space that was not home and was not school, and where they could go and feel safe and work, etc. Having a space where children can go and study and use the free Wi-Fi and IT is important, as we strive to help our children achieve better educational outcomes. Not only did we carry out the public consultation, officers along with myself invited all ward members to come along and meet us to discuss the libraries in their wards. We also invited those members without a library to talk to us so that we had their input as well. This was not without its challenges, but I do feel it was important to understand what elected members felt about the libraries and how they worked in their wards. Officers and myself have also attended numerous friendship groups and spoke to hard-working and highly committed volunteers to help us get a feel how we can continue to work together now and in the future. Conversations have also been had with other local authorities to see if there was an appetite to look at further sharing of services across boundaries to reduce costs. We are already part of a book purchasing consortium, deliver events on a regional basis, and are developing a framework for shared library management systems. There is more that could be done, and we will seek further opportunities in the future. It's very clear that those that use the library service are very passionate about the service and in some cases the buildings they occupy. However, it may be that some of the buildings are no longer fit for purpose for many reasons, and that this is the right time to start to address these issues. Libraries in Kirklees and nationally have changed over the years and continue to evolve. They are no longer the stuffy, old, quiet places that many people remember. They are vibrant places with much more things going on than ever. We offer IT services, free Wi-Fi, knit and natter, craft clubs, dementia cafes, and the list goes on and on. I do believe we've got an up-and-coming pop group coming to the Huddersfield Library shortly. All these things are helping to deliver the Council's outcomes around early intervention and prevention, and the importance of the use of libraries to deliver the Council's outcomes must not be underestimated. What has become very clear over recent years is that libraries have changed, and they are now very much at the heart of the communities they serve. And I believe that working much more with communities, we can create a dynamic service that better meets the needs of differing needs of our communities. The library service is all about people, places and partnerships, and this is the heart of what we wish to deliver in a revised service. I believe that libraries currently meet all 7 outcomes the Council have agreed in the corporate plan, and with some innovative thinking and hard work, we will continue to deliver these outcomes for our residents. So, Chair, I would seek Cabinet's approval to delegate individual change service decisions to the Strategic Director, Adults and Health, in consultation with the portfolio for corporate access to services, place-based working. This will allow the portfolio holder and officers to make changes to the service in a timely manner and without bringing back reports to Cabinet to approve every decision. I can assure residents and Cabinet that no changes other than those proposed in the body of this report will be carried out with full and frank consultations with the public and elected members. This flexibility will allow us to ensure that we meet the various needs of our communities. Some of the things we may wish to do in the coming months, and we will start this process fairly quickly, may be challenging, but I'm not going to shy away from difficult decisions if I believe they are the right ones for the service and the residents of Kirklees. It is my intention, along with officers, to start looking at how we can implement some changes reasonably quickly, as we will not be in a position to make all the potential changes all at once due to staff capacity. One of the early pieces of work will be around the issue of library fines, and if the time has come to remove these, as they are expensive to collect and can place an extra burden on our volunteers. So is this the right time to remove these? This is a question we will be reviewing shortly. It's also worth noting that since the report was published, the failed Northamptonshire Council has had a judicial review against them in relation to their plans to close libraries. The judge's findings do provide some useful guidance, and this helps us to ensure that what we are proposing and how we implement any changes is compliant with the 1964 Library Act. It is clear that as we move forward, we will need to have a robust governance process in place to ensure that we have proper regard for the 64 Act. This report has been hard work for all those involved, but given the judge's findings in the Northamptonshire case, all the time and effort is clearly justified. If anybody wants to read it and got insomnia, it's here. It will put you to sleep, I believe you me. I would like to thank all those friends of groups, members of the public, elected members and volunteers, and all our staff who have taken the time to comment. It's also fair to say that officers worked really hard in getting to this point, both during the normal working day and evenings attending various meetings. And I would like to thank them for the hard work and commitment and patience they have demonstrated to get to this point. Finally, as I've said on numerous occasions, I believe in libraries and will continue to work long and hard and in officers' will to provide the best possible service within the budget we have.
Thank you, Graham. Is that seconded? That is seconded. Could I just point out, Graham, I think it was implicit in what you said, but it goes back to something that John talked about, the timing. That I think it is implicit, as you said. Not the consultations will move at different paces for different times. Now is the individual consultations. Some are more urgent than others. So in some areas, because the change is not predicated very quickly, some areas might not be consulted as early as others. The ones that we consulted earlier are the ones where there are urgent issues to address, I take it.
Chair, without prejudging what may or may not happen this afternoon, we spent some considerable time getting ready for the decision of Cabinet, and should Cabinet accept this report, we're able to move forward fairly quickly. And we have a list of areas that we need to look at, and those will start reasonably quickly after this meeting.
The members want to make a comment? All agree with the recommendations? Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Graham, for all the time you've put in over this, along with it, and I back up your comments to all the friends groups and staff and everyone else who's participated. It's been a long journey, and it's going to be a long journey from now on, and let's hope that we can come out of it better than Northampton or Torbay or some other authorities. Thank you. Can I move on now to item... Sorry, I've got to take a vote on that. All agreed? Thank you. Can I move on to item 10, Spen Valley Leisure Centres. Do we do this one as well, Graham?
Me again, we fed it before today's out. Chair, this is reporting to the proposals to build a new leisure centre in the Spen Valley. As many of us know, the current facility has reached the end of its life and desperately needs replacing. This report again has taken some time and possibly longer than many, including myself and possibly the administration would have wished. But this is a major investment, and the replacement must be in the right place and supply the facilities needed for the next 50 years or so. So we simply have to make sure that this is the right solution. All potential alternative sites in the area are being looked at, but this is the best site for numerous reasons. But even this site is not without challenges to overcome. Cabinet colleagues and myself are concerned about the closure of the pool for potentially 2 years and the impact on those that use the pool and its facilities. And every effort will be made to minimise the impact during the build programme, especially with the large amount of local schools that use the pool. And Cal, along with our officers, will be working closely with those affected to minimise the disruption. However, it is clear that there will be some disruption, which is regrettable but sadly necessary if we are to achieve our goal of providing this much-needed new facility in the Spen Valley. I have asked officers to ensure that if possible, within the budget, the build time is reduced. This may not be possible, but it's important that we do all we can to get the new facility up and running as soon as possible. We did explore the possibility of a temporary pool to cover the build time, but this was just not feasible, again for numerous reasons. Chair, I welcome this report and fully support its findings. This shows this administration's commitment to provide the best possible facility we can within our available capital spend. This will be a fantastic asset for the residents of the Spen Valley, who will be able to enjoy this investment for many years to come. So I ask Cabinet to approve the 15 million investment along with the other recommendations found in today's papers.
Is that seconded? Can I make it clear, Graham? We're not stopping people from outside of the Spen Valley using the facility when it's open. So it's not just the Spen Valley, it's wider facilities. And can I echo Graham, everything that Graham has said, but just want to add a negative note. It's not against the council because how long we've tried to find a way to do this without the 2-year closure. And the real problem was that we originally wanted to build the new facility on the football field at the back of the and it's the Environment Agency who were totally intransigent, which is surprising considering they were going to do flood alleviation works there that were stopped when the crash came and the government withdrew the funding from that flood alleviation works. So that without any flood alleviation, they will not let us build on the football field, which would have meant that we could have built a new facility before we pulled the old one down, which is a great loss. But we all know we've all been and looked at the props holding the baths up and the cracks that appear in the baths and the state of the facilities. So I think it is. I think it's well. The time is right. We've got to get on with it as quickly as possible, but try and make it as easy as possible for all the users of the thing. Any other comments? All in favour? Thank you very much. Item 11, Kirklees Fire Safety Policy.
Chair, this is the Council's update.
Is your show today, Graham?
Sorry? It's just me today. Yeah, I thought I'd got publicity, get myself on webcast. Russians are watching. This is the Council's updated fire policy. It's important that we have a modern and legally compliant, up-to-date fire safety policy. This policy clearly states the Council's obligations and the role directors and heads of service have in ensuring the policy and fire safety precautions are embedded in all parts of the Council. In approving this policy, we will meet our legal obligations under the various pieces of legislation we have to comply with. Cabinet will also note that some additional capital and revenue spend will be required to implement this new policy, and the details will be brought forward to Cabinet later this year. Chair, I ask Cabinet to approve the recommendations on page 91 of today's agenda.
Yeah, is that seconded? Can I make it clear that it's not that we didn't have a policy before? This is an update of our current policy.
Yeah.
All in favour? Thank you very much. I move on to item 12. It's this to get you, Greg Engram, or is it Peter?
I'm sorry, it's me again. Which one is it? Oh, is it? Go on, yeah.
This is the joint investment and Kirklees Council to invest in the centre of Dewsbury. Substantial sum of money of £44 million, which we will invest in housing, in the public realm and in architecture. It's part of an overall policy of both Huddersfield and Dewsbury to keep buildings in use, to keep them where possible, people living in the buildings, and to improve generally the public realm, to increase footfall and economic activity in town centres. And this is a model example of how we're using our money to lock in some government money to achieve that objective.
Seconded? All agreed? Yeah. Thank you very much. Can I move on to item 13, which is the last one that's all in public? Copy for that again, you, Graham, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much. This is the Q1 financial monitoring report. As we are well aware, local government finances are still under enormous pressures, and we still face the uncertainty of how local government will be funded from 2020 onwards. We still face significant challenges once against this financial year, and continue to be challenged by with and demand and increased pressures in all parts of the council. We have revised the budget to deal with these extra demands by 5.4 million. However, we still face a projected overspend of 4.4 million this financial year within this revised budget. But given this is only Q1 and traditional spend goes down over the rest of the financial year, I am optimistic that despite all the growing pressures, we will be able to deliver a balanced budget by year end, as the planned cuts to services caused by the underfunding of local government by central government come to fruition. Chair, I ask Cabinet to accept this report and then the recommendations found on page 126 and 127 of today's agenda.
to item 14, can I remind members that if you refer, I presume you've all read the confidential part of the papers that's in private session. If you refer to any items in that confidential paper or have questions on that, we'd have to go into a private session. But otherwise, we're on item 14. With that proviso, again, is that you again, Graham?
Yeah. Yeah, this is 1 on New Street. Chair, as you said, I'm sure Cabinet members have read the private report contained in today's papers. This is a really good news story. Sorry, got the right pieces of paper. I've got that much pieces of paper. Yeah, sorry, I've got it. It is a good news story. This loan will be used to refurbish 103 New Street as we know it, or the Old Court building as the public knows it. We have tried to sell this building for many years, but until very recently, despite our best efforts, we have had no real offers. This loan will allow a well-respected local developer with a proven track record to develop this very difficult and sensitive site. This administration is often criticised for not investing and not doing what it can to help the local economy and local businesses to develop and thrive. Well, this is an example where we are investing, we are working with the local business, and we are tackling an eyesore that's been at the blot of the landscape of Huddersfield for far too long. We will invest in our towns, we will work with businesses to improve our town centres when the opportunity arises, as it has in this case. As always, with any loan there is an element of risk, but all the required due diligence has been done and the risk is minimal. Chair, I ask Cabinet to accept this report and agree to the loan to allow SKA to develop this site.
I endorse Graham's remarks. This is a continuation of what I said about Dewsbury. It's the same principle with regard to Huddersfield. Investing in the town centre, keeping buildings in use for housing, so it's ticking all the boxes. It's a very sensible investment. You may remember when we agreed to have such a fund that we said that money you're borrowing on, we're using our borrowing power, we've got to use it with great diligence and prudence. And I think here we're dealing with a company that's already invested its own money significantly in the centre of town to achieve the same objectives and effectively, and all of those investments are coming to fruition as we speak. So this is absolutely welcome.
On to item 15. Peter, you again. Sorry, 14. I've not missed one.
14, come on, I haven't had enough to say today.
Just done 14. New Street, just done 14. You've just done that. I'm on to item 15. Hey, look, my Alzheimer's bad enough without you accusing me of being in the wrong place. It is item 15 at the moment. Item 15. He did 13 first. He did 13. Yeah. Well, he read a long report out. You're at least half an hour. You must have been asleep, Liz. You'll have to check on you. I think you need to go to your doctors.
The overall Heritage Fund to achieve a particular objective with regard to this public house called Black Bull. I think Eric might have more ideas about it than I do. I mean, he knows the area much better than I do.
Anybody who used to drink down Dewsbury knows this pub very well. Yeah. I'll second that report, Peter.
Yep.
All agreed?
Great.
Thank you very much. Item 16, Liz, you wanted to assist me on this one?
I just want to make some comments on the site that's listed as Rakes Lane, the Mount Birstall. This is actually opposite a larger piece of land that's been designated for housing and is actually on next week's Cabinet report. And I do feel that the two sales of land, actually they're in such close proximity to one another that the cumulative effect needs to be taken into account. So the land sits within the Birstall Conservation Area and forms part of the open green space. It sits next to a site with a Grade 2 listed building on, together with curtilage buildings, and sits directly on the junction of the Cobble Mount and Rakes Lane. If the council sells this land, what guarantees do we have that it will remain green space? What protections can be put in place? If the answer is none, then this land should remain in council ownership, as green space in Bristol is slowly being eroded by the selling of land by the council in this important conservation area. Thank you.
Just that comment about the lack of green space in Bristol.
Well, you're slowly reducing it.
Have you been to Edmund White recently? Can you point out where the green space is in Edmund White?
Chair, Cabinet will be also aware of the private report that accompanies this document. The contents of this report have been circulated to all elected members whose wards are affected by the contents, and the comments from those members are within the body report, except the ones from Liz, who came a little bit late. But I have been made aware of them and thought about those. All these sites have been to the Cross-Party Asset Board, who approved the proposals contained within today's report. As we know, we are reducing the amount of assets that are not required by the Council's long-term strategy on buildings. This rationalisation raises much needed capital that allows us to invest in the authority and reduce our borrowing. It also gives us much needed revenue saving in some cases. Also, by selling these pockets of land, it is hoped that they can be developed quickly and provided with much needed housing and the potential for businesses to grow, which will also provide employment during the development of these sites, whether it is for housing or business. I would like to point out that one of the sites in this report is potentially part of a wider scheme and is simply here to enable conversations to be had as soon as it is practical, without the need for a separate Cabinet report at some point in the future. Chair, I seek Cabinet's approval to accept the recommendation report and to allow these disposals to move forward. Referring to Liz's point, any concerns about urban green space, etc., will be picked up through the normal planning process.
Sorry, is that seconded? All agreed? Thank you. Can move on to item 17 now. Graham again.
Chair, again, I'm sure the Cabinet members have read the private report contained in today's papers. This is a really good news story. I am very pleased that this piece of land can now be sold, subject to Cabinet approval, to a world leader in manufacturing, which will attract much needed jobs to Kirklees, 70% of which are classed as highly skilled. It will also generate a significant amount of much needed business rates for the Council. This piece of land has been offered for sale since 2015 until Affleck's approached the Council had received no interest in the site. This multi-million-pound investment in manufacture by a world-leading exporter is proof that Kirklees is open for business, and I would just like to thank officers for the hard work they have put into securing this sale and all the benefits to Kirklees Affleck's will now bring, and in the future as they continue to grow and expand their business. I would ask Cabinet to support this sale and welcome Affleck's to Kirklees.
Seconded? All
trying to develop this site for 20 odd years, and this is a major investment. I think it'll be interesting, another report showing the full impact of what they're buying land from the council, of their overall investment. Very significant. Also, the infrastructure necessary is all part of what is planned anyway, so that won't be a problem. So it's just a very good news story for jobs in Huddersfield and Kirklees.
In favour? Yes. Thank you very much. Item 18.
It's me again. Sorry, Chair, this is a report again, a report where I'm sure they've already read the private report. This report seeks Cabinet's approval to invest in our cremation service by replacing the cremators at both our crematoria. The equipment is reaching the end of its life and therefore needs to be replaced. By replacing the equipment, we will comply with all the current legislation now and for the foreseeable future. The new equipment would also be more efficient, thus saving some money. They will also be more environmentally friendly. Improvements will also be carried out at both the Dewsbury and Huddersfield sites to modernise the sites, both at the front of house and behind the scenes. Chair, this is not a statutory service, but one that the Council chooses to provide for our residents at what is the most difficult time for residents. And in doing so, we can make sure that we provide the best facilities we can, both at the front of house and the operations behind the scenes. Chair, I ask Cabinet to approve this capital investment to enable us to provide a modern and efficient service for our residents.
Can somebody second that without making inappropriate puns?
Can I second it?
Yes, second.
I welcome this report and look forward to the investment that's going to go into the crematorias. The work will take place as soon as the reports go through Cabinet, and it's a significant investment into the future of this facility. Thank you.
All in favour? Thank you. And you notice that because all the other items have been considered previously, when they took the reports, there are no items that are purely in private session. So that ends this meeting, and we now go to the second meeting, which the Cabinet as trustees. Isn't that in private?